Today, we'll be talking about grit and resilience, lessons from life and the classroom. You know, when I was growing up, I thought resilience meant sitting through a school assembly first thing in the morning without falling asleep. And grit? This was just something stuck in my shoes after playing in the park. But now, I see things differently. Resilience and grit aren't just catchy buzzwords. They're the bedrock of what makes someone able to face challenges and come out stronger. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Gadanveer Gill. G. Michael Hoff famously wrote, "Tough times create tough men. Tough men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create tough times." This isn't just a catchy quote, but it's the reality of life. It's true, tough times never last. Only tough people do. But how do we teach someone to be tough? Is it genetic? Something we're just born with? Or is it something that can be taught? Science shows that grit and resilience are both traits that can be fostered from a young age. But how? Today, we're diving into a question that's fascinated me for a long time. How do we teach grit and resilience to kids? Not just talk about it, not just hope they pick it up, but actively foster these traits so they grow into adults who can handle setbacks, think long term, and keep moving forward. And I'll share why this isn't just a theory for me. It's personal. I've lived it. I've seen what works and what doesn't. How small, deliberate actions can lead to big, lasting change. To begin, I've handed you all a short 9-question survey created by Duckworth and Quinn in 2009. This measures a person's level of grit based on the statements rated on a 5-point Likert scale. This includes items like, "Setbacks don't discourage me," and "I am a hard worker." The scoring works like this. Participants rate how well each item describes them from a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not like me at all, 5 being very much like me. Some items are reverse scored to ensure consistency. Once all items are scored correctly, the average of all items gives you the final grit score. And for the inverse questions, count a 5 as a 1 and a 1 as a 5. Higher scores indicate higher grit, meaning the person is more consistent, passionate, and persistent toward long-term goals. A score closer to 5 equals more gritty, and closer to 1 equals less gritty. Take a moment to fill out the questionnaire, and once you're done and everything is tallied, set it aside. We'll visit your scores at the end. I hope to provide you with the tools to ensure that your score either comes up closer to 5 or give you the evidence as to why your score is already there. Let me give you an example everyone can relate to, the Rubik's Cube. This was invented in 1974 by Erno Rubik, a Hungarian architect and professor. Originally, he wasn't trying to create a toy or a puzzle. He was trying to help his students understand 3-dimensional movement and spatial relationships in architecture. He built a cube with 26 smaller moving parts, and when he scrambled it for the first time, he realized something crazy. He couldn't solve it. The inventor of the Rubik's Cube couldn't solve his own invention. It took him over a month to finally crack it. Piece by piece, trial by trial, mistake by mistake, he slowly found patterns and strategies. And when he finally did solve it, he realized what he created was more than just a teaching tool. It was a problem-solving masterpiece. At first, it wasn't easy to get the cube out into the world. He was behind the Iron Curtain in a communist country with no clear path to mass production or any Western markets. But he pushed. He got a patent. And in 1980, the cube was finally launched internationally. Originally, people thought it was a fad or a gimmick, but it spread like wildfire. Since then, the Rubik's Cube has sold over 450 million units. The very item you see in my hand now has become a symbol of intelligence and creativity, inspiring global competitions, championships, and even speed cubing as a sport. Rubik wasn't trying to build a billion-dollar toy. He was trying to solve a problem. And when he hit a wall, he didn't toss it aside. He sat with it, struggled, and learned from the thing he created. His own invention made him feel stuck, and that's exactly what made it beautiful. If that's not resilience, I don't know what is. So next time you see a Rubik's Cube, don't just think of it as a toy. Think of it as a reminder that even the smartest people get stuck, but the ones who win, they keep turning the cube. The official Rubik's Cube website starts their solution guide with the affirmation, "Mindset is critical. Learning to solve the Rubik's Cube is difficult, but if you persevere, you can solve the Rubik's Cube." Let me start by taking you back to my childhood. I grew up in a household where the bar was set pretty high. My parents were immigrants who worked relentlessly hard. There were no free weekends or lazy Saturdays. If the sun was up, you were up. If the sun was down, you were probably still up, getting something done. At the time, I hated it. I remember waking up early, helping my dad with work. Owning a family business meant my parents always had free labor in the form of my siblings and I. I would think, why can't I just sleep in like my friends? But as I got older, I realized those experiences were shaping me. They taught me how to push through discomfort, how to handle failure, and most importantly, how to keep going when things got tough. I didn't realize it back then, but I was building resilience and grit, one weekend chore at a time. So what is grit and resilience? Angela Duckworth in the National Library of Medicine calls grit passion and perseverance toward long-term goals. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset tells us resilience is about seeing setbacks not as stop signs, but as stepping stones. Put simply, grit is the what. It's sticking with something even when it's hard. Resilience, that's the how. It's the tools and the mindset that help you recover from setbacks and keep going. These two qualities work hand in hand. Grit helps you keep your eyes on the prize, and resilience helps you get back up after you fall. So, why does this matter in schools? Schools aren't just places for reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're environments where kids learn how to handle failure, how to persevere, and how to approach life's challenges with the belief that they can improve. Research shows that students who develop grit and resilience are more likely to succeed academically, to stay in school longer, and to feel more confident tackling big goals. This isn't about pushing kids to their breaking point. It's about creating an environment where they feel supported, encouraged, and capable of growth. The government of Alberta defines social emotional learning, also known as SEL, as the process of developing students' knowledge, attitudes, and skills to manage emotions while building healthy relationships, setting goals, and making decisions. According to a study done by the Child Development Society for Research in Child Development in 2011, that involved more than 270,000 students K to 12. SEL participants demonstrated significant improvement in social and emotional skills, increasing their resilience when undertaking new tasks or faced with failure. These students showed significant performance in academic, and by the end of the study, students in the SEL program gained on average 11 percentile points. These aren't personality traits, but ones that can be actively nurtured in the classroom. Meet John and Timmy. Same town, same grade, same math teacher. But from the outside, that's where the similarities end. See, John's childhood was shaped by struggle. His dad worked 2 jobs, and his mom, she taught him that nothing worth having ever comes easy. When John failed his first test in grade 4, he didn't get punished. Instead, his mom handed him a notebook and said, "Write down what you learned about yourself. Not just the test, you." She called it the Grit Journal. Then there was wrestling. Every practice, John got beat up by kids half his size, but his coach didn't let him quit. He'd point to the mat and say, "Get back up. You're not learning if you're not losing." By the time John hit high school, failure didn't scare him. It fueled him. Now Timmy was different. Not lazy, not dumb, just untested. His parents meant well. They told him he was smart, special, and destined for success. When he failed, they blamed the teacher. When things got hard, they stepped in. They believed protecting Timmy from success was the way to show love. So Timmy avoided failure, he avoided risk, and he avoided discomfort. Fast forward, in university, John bombs his first chem midterm, 42%. He shrugs, cracks open his textbook, and books office hours. He pulls a B on the final, and a quiet fist bump tells you, this guy's been here before. Timmy? He gets a 65 and he spirals. Maybe I'm not cut for this. He switches majors. Then again. Then he ends up dropping out. By 30, John's running a startup. He's been broke twice, laughed out of meetings, slept on couches. He's rolling with the punches, but he's still swinging. He makes $120,000 a year, has a team that trusts him, and wakes up excited to fail a little more than he did yesterday. John knew that in life, there were only wins and lessons, never losses. George Augustus Moore says, "A winner is just a loser who tried one more time." Timmy? He's smart, still is, but he's paralyzed by doubt. Never found his lane. He's stuck in a job he doesn't love, wondering why being smart never paid off. So what made the difference? It wasn't IQ, it wasn't talent, it wasn't luck. It was that John learned that failure isn't the end, it's the beginning. Grit, growth mindset, resilience. These weren't just buzzwords, they were muscles. And John, he'd been training them for years. Are you building your muscles? Or are you protecting your comfort? Because in the long run, comfort is the enemy of greatness. Here's an image pretty much everyone has seen. 2 men, side by side, deep underground, each digging through a tunnel of rock and dirt. They're miners, not for coal, not for gold, but for diamonds. One of them, on the top half of the image, is still swinging his pickaxe. He's drenched in sweat, tired, but you can see the fire in his eyes. He's just inches away from striking the largest pile of diamonds you've ever seen. A massive wall of them, just barely out of reach. But then there's a second man. He's below, and he's walking away. Same tunnel, same pickaxe, same hours of back-breaking labor, but he's turned his back. You can see the slump in his shoulder, the defeat in his posture. The cruel part? He stopped digging just inches away, right before he would have hit it big. The diamonds were right there. It's the same mine, the same goal. The only difference? One kept going, and the other gave up. In Angela Duckworth's research through the University of Pittsburgh, she found that gritty individuals not only work hard through difficult times, but they also stay committed to long-term aspirations. There is a very strong correlation between grit and success later in life. The most prestigious American military academy, West Point, gives all applicants a grit questionnaire, which they say is the best indicator whether a cadet will persist through intense training, go on to graduate, and become a high-ranking officer one day. These stories are cool and all, but how do we teach these traits and foster them at a young age? I've broken it down into 5 steps. First, we must normalize mistakes. A classroom where mistakes are okay is a classroom where kids are willing to try. Teachers can share their own failures, talk about the time they bombed a project or a test, maybe a presentation. But the important part is to show how they bounce back. The second way is by praising the process, not the outcome. Instead of saying, "You're so smart," say, "I'm proud of how hard you worked on that." This simple shift helps kids see effort as a key to success, not just innate ability. The third, teach growth mindset. Introduce the idea that our brains grow stronger with practice. Teach kids to say, "I can't do this yet," rather than "I'll never get this." Students must learn that struggle is part of learning, not a sign of failure. The fourth, we must set meaningful but real goals. Work with students to set challenging but achievable goals. Help them break those goals into steps. Celebrate progress along the way. The fifth, provide support and encouragement. One caring adult, whether it's a teacher, a coach, or a mentor, can make all the difference. Sometimes, all it takes is someone saying, "I believe in you," to ignite a kid's belief in themselves. So I've just handed out pens and some paper. I'd like you to all think about a task in your life that you keep putting off. It might be an assignment due in a couple weeks, or studying for finals. Whatever it is, we all have something that's been nagging at us in the back of our head. For the next minute or so, I want you all to write down what you've been putting off and the reason for it. I then want you to write down how you'll get through it and the timeline it'll take you to accomplish your goal. What setbacks you might face, and how could you handle them? Imagine your life once you're done, the burden removed and the stress alleviated. In his book, The War of Art, Steven Pressfield says, "When we sit down and work, we become like a magnetized rod that attracts iron filings. Ideas come, insights accrete. Just as resistance has its seat in hell, so creation has its home in heaven. And it's not just a witness, but an eager and active ally." But sometimes motivation is not enough. We must rely on discipline or willpower. According to Dr. Andrew Huberman and the Huberman Lab, there's a part of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex that was said to control willpower. When people do something they don't want to do, for example, sitting down to complete your assignment or getting up to go to the gym, when you do anything you specifically do not want to do, this area of the brain gets larger. And studies have recently shown a correlation between this area of the brain and your will to live. It's been hypothesized that this is the reason we see so many war-hardened veterans or those who lived through the Great Depression live far past the average lifespan. Before we dive back in, I've got a quick word from today's sponsor, Sahara Courtyard Inn, located in Penticton and Osoyoos. You know, we've been talking a lot about grit and resilience, pushing through challenges, staying consistent, and showing up even when it's hard. But here's the truth most people forget. Resilience doesn't mean running yourself into the ground. It also means recovering, right? Giving your mind and your body the chance to reset so you can come back stronger. That's where Sahara Courtyard Inn comes in. Whether you're in town for work, sports, or just passing through, this place is quiet, comfortable, and actually lets you rest. No distraction, no chaos, just the kind of sleep that builds back the energy you need to keep going. So yeah, keep building that grit, but never underestimate the power of a good night's sleep in the right place. Sahara Courtyard Inn, where rest meets resilience. All right, now back to the show. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Resilience and grit aren't about perfection. They're about persistence. Kids need spaces where it's okay to fall, where they're encouraged to try again, and where their efforts are recognized and valued. So here's the big question for all of us. How do we show up? How do we as adults create environments where kids feel supported enough to fall down, but safe enough to get back up and try again? How do we celebrate the journey instead of the destination? I don't have all the answers, but I do know that small intentional changes can lead to lasting impact. And if I can leave you with one thing, it's this. Every kid has the potential to be resilient. Every kid has the ability to grow. You just have to give them the tools, the encouragement, and the belief that they can. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep showing up, keep pushing through, and keep helping the next generation build the grit they need to thrive.